My best friend's sister locked eyes with me and said, "You're not walking out that door until you talk to me." I never thought a random Tuesday afternoon would change everything. But that's the thing about life. It never warns you. It started like any other visit to my best friend Jake's place. We'd been friends since middle school, the kind of friendship where you don't even knock anymore. You just walk in, raid the fridge, and collapse on the couch. His house had always felt like a second home to me. Comfortable, safe, familiar. Except that day, Jake wasn't home. I'd forgotten he had football practice. I remembered the second I walked through the front door and heard nothing. No TV blaring, no Jake yelling at whatever video game he was losing. Just silence. I should have turned around, should have texted him and left. But my legs didn't get that memo. I stood in the entryway like an idiot, about to pivot toward the door, when I heard footsteps coming down that sleek, modern staircase, the one with the glass panels and the soft white lighting that made the whole house look like something out of an architecture magazine. And then I saw her. Melissa, Jake's older sister. She was wearing a red dress, fitted, polished, the kind of outfit that made it clear she'd just come from somewhere important. She worked in corporate law downtown, always professional, always composed. We'd exchanged maybe 30 words total over the past 4 years. She was 3 years older than us, light years ahead in every other way. She stopped mid-step when she saw me.
"Oh, Ryan." She blinked. "Jake's not here."
"Yeah, I figured that out," I said, already backing toward the door.
"My bad. I'll just wait."
One word, but the way she said it made my feet stop like they'd forgotten how to work. She came down the last few steps slowly, studying my face the way people study fine print, carefully, looking for something specific. "When did you last sleep?" she asked. I laughed it off. "I sleep fine." "That's not what your face says." I didn't have an answer for that, mostly because she was right. I hadn't slept more than 4 hours in 2 weeks. I'd been running on caffeine and the kind of stubborn pride that convinces you everything is fine if you just keep moving fast enough. I reached for the door handle. That's when she moved, calm, unhurried, and stepped directly in front of it, arms crossed, eyes steady, red dress, immovable. "You're not walking out that door until you talk to me." I stared at her. "Melissa, I'm fine." Nobody who's fine has that look on their face. "What look?" "Like you're carrying something you've been carrying alone for way too long." The words hit somewhere I wasn't prepared for. I actually felt my jaw tighten, that reflex you get when you're trying very hard not to feel something that's already started feeling you. "It's nothing," I said. She didn't move. "Seriously," I added, "it's nothing worth talking about." "Then it'll take 5 minutes. She tilted her head toward the living room. "Sit down, Ryan." I don't know why I listened. Maybe because I was tired. Maybe because she had that particular voice, not loud, not demanding, just absolutely certain, that made arguing feel pointless. Maybe because some part of me, buried under weeks of silence and performance, desperately needed someone to just ask. I sat on the couch. She sat across from me, tucked one leg under herself like she had all the time in the world, and waited. So I talked, quietly at first, carefully, the way you test ice before you walk on it. I told her about my dad, about the business he'd built for 20 years going under in a matter of months, about how he tried to hide it from us, from me and my mom, and how I'd found out by accident when I overheard a phone call I was never supposed to hear, about how I'd been pretending not to know ever since because I didn't want to add to his weight by letting him see that I was scared too, about how I'd been watching my father, this man I'd looked up to my entire life, shrink, quietly, slowly, like a light dimming in a room you're not supposed to notice is getting darker, and how I had absolutely no idea what to do about any of it. By the time I finished, I realized my hands were shaking slightly. I pressed them flat on my knees. Melissa hadn't interrupted once. She sat there listening with a kind of focused stillness that most people don't have. Not nodding along mechanically, not jumping in with immediate advice or hollow comfort, just present. Completely, genuinely present. When I stopped talking, the silence lasted a few seconds. Then she said, "How long have you been holding that?" "Couple months." She exhaled. Dramatically,
It's just the quiet exhale of someone processing something real. That's a long time to carry something like that by yourself. I didn't want to make it worse.
I know, she said. That's exactly what people who care too much do. They suffer quietly so other people don't have to. Something about hearing that, being seen in that specific way, was almost overwhelming. I looked away, pretending to study the architecture of the staircase behind her. Doesn't make it noble, though. It just makes it lonely, I nodded, because I couldn't argue with that. She talked for a while after that. Not at me, with me. She told me about a time in her first year of law school, when her whole world had felt like it was collapsing, and she'd convinced herself that pushing through alone was strength, when really it was just fear wearing a strong face. The bravest thing I ever did, she said, was call my mom at 2 in the morning and admit I didn't have it together. What did she say? Melissa smiled. Small, real. She said, I know, baby. I've been waiting for you to call. I felt something loosen in my chest. Something I hadn't even realized was knotted. You should talk to your dad, she said. Not to fix it, not to have answers, just to let him know you know, and that it doesn't change a single thing about how you see him. What if it breaks him? Ryan, her voice was quiet but firm. You knowing and saying nothing, that might be the thing that breaks him. People can survive hard news. What they can't always survive is feeling invisible to the people they love. I sat with that for a long moment. Outside, I could hear a car pulling into the driveway. Jake, probably, back from practice. I stood up. Melissa uncrossed her arms and stood too. Thank you, I said. It came out quieter than I intended. Don't thank me. She walked toward the kitchen like the conversation was already filed away. Handled. Done. The way competent people move on after something important. Then she paused and looked back over her shoulder. Talk to your dad tonight. Not tomorrow. Tonight. I did. I drove home, sat across from my father at the kitchen table after dinner and said, Dad, I know, and I need you to know that I'm not going anywhere. He looked at me for a long moment, and then, this man who hadn't cried in front of me since I was 7 years old. His eyes filled. He didn't break. He breathed, like a man who'd been underwater finally finding air. We talked for 3 hours. About fear, about pride, about what comes next. My mom joined us eventually. It wasn't a solution. The problems were still there, the numbers were still hard, the road ahead was still uncertain. But we were facing it together. And that changed everything. I never told Jake what happened that afternoon. It felt like something that belonged to a quiet, private space, the kind of conversation that doesn't need an audience. But a few weeks later, I ran into Melissa in the hallway when I was over at their place. She looked at me once. I gave her the smallest nod. She gave one back. And that was enough. Some things don't need words the second time. Sometimes the person who stops you at the door is the one you needed to meet on the other side of it.